At a demolition site, a worker was using a hammer to break apart a concrete foundation post while standing directly beside it. As he continued striking the structure, a large section suddenly separated from the post and collapsed toward him. The falling debris struck the worker before he could move out of the way. This incident clearly demonstrates the severe hazards of uncontrolled material collapse during demolition activities. Structural components can fail unpredictably once their integrity is compromised. Workers must establish collapse zones, maintain safe distances, and never position themselves beneath or beside unstable structures. At a surplus junkyard, several workers were preparing to load a heavy lathe machine using a crane. As the lift began, the harness securing the lathe suddenly failed. The massive machine fell, crushing one of the workers standing nearby. This incident clearly demonstrates the deadly consequences of improper rigging and workers positioning themselves within suspended load zones. All lifting slings, harnesses, and attachment points must be inspected and rated for the load before every lift. Workers must never stand beneath or beside suspended equipment, and controlled lift plans should be followed with clear exclusion zones established around overhead operations. In the loading area of a grocery store, a worker attempted to unload stacked cases of beverages from a pallet without using a ramp. As he pulled on the pallet to move it, the unstable load suddenly tipped forward. The pallet flipped over, and dozens of heavy drink cases fell onto the worker, knocking him to the ground and trapping him beneath the collapsing stack. This incident clearly demonstrates the serious risks of improper material handling and attempting to move heavy, top-loaded pallets manually. Workers should never pull stacked loads toward themselves, and fall zones must be kept clear when handling elevated or unsecured materials. In the parking lot of a bar, a worker was preparing to unload stacked cases of beer bottles from the back of a delivery truck. As he began handling the load, the unstable stack suddenly tipped forward. Instinctively, the worker tried to catch the falling cases and jumped down from the truck into the path of the collapsing load. The heavy boxes struck him on the head and body as they hit the ground, shattering bottles and spilling beer across the pavement. Nearby stacks that had already been unloaded were also knocked over, causing a chain reaction of collapsing cases. This incident clearly demonstrates the extreme dangers of unstable stacking and workers placing themselves in the fall zone of collapsing materials. At a port, a mobile crane was attempting to load a container van onto a vessel when the weight of the container exceeded the crane's lifting capacity. As the lift progressed, the crane's center of gravity shifted forward, causing the entire machine to tip toward the water. The crane overturned into the harbor while still attached to the load, pulling against the vessel and contributing to the ship's capsizing. This incident clearly demonstrates the catastrophic consequences of exceeding crane load limits and failing to maintain proper lifting stability. All crane operations must follow rated capacity charts that account for load weight, boom angle, and radius. Inside a vulcanizing shop, a worker had a large tire on standby while it was being inflated with compressed air. As he approached the tire and disconnected the air hose, the overpressurized tire suddenly exploded with extreme force. The blast launched the tire upward like a rocket. Fortunately, the worker was not struck directly and was able to walk away from the incident. This incident clearly demonstrates the severe dangers of tire overinflation and standing within the trajectory zone of pressurized components. Workers must use tire safety cages during inflation, stand to the side while airing tires, and follow manufacturer pressure limits. At a construction contractor facility, a mini excavator was being loaded onto the back of a truck using an improvised ramp made from wooden planks. As the machine began driving up the makeshift ramp, the boards failed under the weight. The planks split apart, causing the excavator to lose balance and tip onto its side. This incident clearly demonstrates the serious risks of using improvised loading ramps and equipment not rated for heavy machinery. All loading operations must use certified ramps designed for the machine's weight and track width. Ground conditions and ramp alignment must be verified before loading, and spotters should be present to guide operators. Inside a storage facility, a forklift positioned behind a pickup truck suddenly began reversing toward the truck's rear bumper. At the same time, the pickup truck also started backing up. As the gap between the two vehicles rapidly closed, a worker attempted to intervene by physically pushing the forklift away. Instead, He became trapped between the forklift and the truck, getting crushed as the vehicles collided. A nearby coworker quickly rushed in to assist him. This incident clearly demonstrates the life-threatening dangers of workers placing themselves between moving vehicles and attempting manual intervention during equipment conflicts. Vehicles and mobile equipment must be coordinated with clear communication, designated operators, and spotters when working in close proximity. Inside a manufacturing plant, a worker was operating a pressing machine when he accidentally lowered his head into the gap beneath the press. The machine cycled, trapping his head as the press came down. A nearby co-worker initially failed to notice the emergency, but another worker quickly recognized what was happening and rushed over to help stop the machine and free him. This incident clearly demonstrates the extreme dangers of operating press machinery without proper guarding and lockout safeguards. Presses must be equipped with physical guards, light curtains, or two-hand controls to prevent body parts from entering danger zones. At a quarry site, a dump truck was operating with its cargo box raised while the load inside had shifted unevenly to one side. The unbalanced weight caused the raised bed to lean, moving the truck's center of gravity beyond its stability limits. Moments later, the entire truck tipped over, bouncing violently as it fell and ejecting the worker inside the cab. This incident clearly demonstrates the catastrophic dangers of raising dump beds with uneven loads and unstable ground conditions. Operators should stop immediately if a bed begins to lean and lower it before attempting any further movement. Inside a furniture warehouse, a forklift operator set down a metal drawer frame and began reversing away from the load. However, the forks had not been fully withdrawn from the frame. As the operator raised the forks again, the partially engaged metal framing was lifted and flipped unexpectedly. The frame then fell forward, striking a worker standing nearby. This incident clearly demonstrates the serious hazards of improper fork disengagement and workers standing within the fall zone of handled materials. Forklift operators must fully clear forks from loads before lifting or repositioning, and loads should be placed on stable surfaces before equipment movement resumes. On an oil rig, a worker finished aligning and positioning a new drill pipe and then stepped directly in front of it. Moments later, as the pipe was raised and disengaged from its support, it suddenly shifted. The moving pipe struck the worker without warning. This incident clearly demonstrates the severe hazards of standing in the line of fire during pipe handling operations. Drill pipes can move unpredictably when tension is applied or when connections are released. Workers must stay clear of suspended or pressurized components and never position themselves in front of loads that can swing, roll, or shift.